probably the most central feature of Chardin's philosophy is what he calls the omega point. A lot of people kind of get this secondhand through Terence McKenna, though the way he construes it is a little bit different than the way Chardin was. Very typical Terence McKenna fashion, but Chardin is trying to understand the universe in terms of purposiveness. He was a paleontologist, and what he saw within evolution history was a striving towards something. And so the phenomenon of man, in a lot of ways, is him trying to crack that riddle. Where is this going? Why do we see what seems to be a very purposive trajectory in this narrative of cosmogenesis and biogenesis and anthrogenesis, right? And the conclusion that he comes to is that there is a kind of ultimate attractor which is driving the universe forward. He calls this the omega point, in which there will be a kind of absolute synthesis of all things, not just all things at that particular point in time, but the past as well. Everything somehow will be incorporated into what really within Chardin's philosophy ends up looking like the body of Christ, as it were, because that's really what it amounts to. It is the manifestation within nature of that love, as it were, that drive towards synthesis of difference, right? Chardin's teleology is very symbiotic, very symbiogenetic. It is all about difference and then bringing difference together into ever more complex unities. It seems to completely fly in the face of the standard academic cosmology, which for some reason is still based on the metaphor of the steam engine winding down due to the laws of entropy and us just coming to this inevitable resting state in which all energy and matter break down into this absolutely meaningless equilibrium. Chardin's vision is very different than that. Chardin thinks that what's going to be created is a kind of super cosmic mind, perhaps. He's a little fuzzy on the details of what this is going to look like, but it's really interesting to me to think about what that could possibly look like if that is indeed the way things are going, because I was actually watching Gallahan's video, his first video, yesterday actually, in which he describes this kind of celestial cathedral thing, and I thought that was very interesting because when I was reading Chardin's work, The Phenomenon of Man, that's kind of what I had in the back of my mind the whole time. Like somehow this super cosmic organism type of thing that somehow incorporates all of the spirit of the universe as a whole. So yeah, definitely big ideas. I should also say probably though that I am a little on the fence with Chardin in some ways. I'm not quite so certain that Chardin was right to insinuate that this is all, let's say, driven towards a particular moment of realization in the future where everything finally just clicks into place, which he does seem to talk about it that way sometimes. That could be true. I'm not saying it's not, but I think if we look at Whitehead, we can see something that's a little bit different, where the kind of unification that Chardin is talking about is not necessarily something that's going to happen sometime in the distant future, but in a sense, it's actually continually happening as the world continually generates novelty, and that novelty is continually incorporated into what Whitehead would call the consequent nature of God. You could call it the terminal nature of God, if you want to use Longham's terminology. It's the natural world itself, which is kind of like the body of the cosmos. And then, of course, it's possible that you could somehow reconcile those two together. I mean, I don't think it's terribly unfathomable that it could somehow be both, but either way, that's a rough sketch of the territory.